Wait, let me have a sip of like something to drink.
Of course. Oh, is that matcha?
Green juice. Juice generation.
Oh, yummy. I have my red tea here, so
Made a special trip to Juice Generation just for like my juices.
that's awesome. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Actors Vow, everybody. So today it's finally the 50th episode, and I've been saying for like 2 weeks that I was doing the 50th episode, and that just never happened because I have somebody very special with me today. And, I had a very special idea for this episode. I always interview people, and you guys always ask me questions, and I don't talk too much about my personal life. So I was like, what about having somebody interview me? And I thought about several people when I had that idea. And then I was like, okay, if there was somebody that was me, but brunette instead of blonde and Czech instead of Spanish, that would be Monika. And Monika is my friend. Hey, Monika, welcome to the Actors Vow. How are you?
Everyone, I'm very good. I am hailing from New York here, different coast than Denise, right?
Yeah.
I am very excited to be here.
So I told Monika about the idea, and she's like, what? Like, I don't know. What do I say? What do we talk about?
This is like I think this is my first podcast like in my life. So I'm like, oh my God.
But like you and I have the most intense conversations like on Instagram or in person when we've met. So that's why I was like, this needs to work. It will work. And we haven't seen each other in so long, and it's so sad.
It's true. It's been a long time, yes.
Yeah. So Monica and I met 2 years ago? 3 years ago?
I think it was like 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, we met 2 years ago at a party. And yeah, we didn't know each other at all. And then we started talking, and right away it was like, wow, we have so much in common. And it was really cool. And since then, we've been really good friends. So that's the story. She lives in New York. I live in LA. I used to live in New York, but
I kind of live in LA too. I haven't been there for a while because of the pandemic, but other than that, I'm also there quite a bit. So yeah.
yeah, well, yeah. We met in LA, so she goes here and there.
Yeah.
And you also do acting. So you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, what should I say? I am originally from the Czech Republic, as you already mentioned, and I came here to do modeling, and so I've done some modeling, and I also do acting. I started to study acting in New York, and I have been ever since, and I've added writing to it too, and like just being an artist here, I guess.
You also do photography. I love your photography.
Thank you. I really have like a huge passion for photography, and it's amazing to be able to be a part of it as the subject and sometimes also as a photographer. So yeah.
You are like the definition of artist. I feel like, do you draw?
I do, yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. I'm like, I feel like you can do anything artistic related, right?
I think that, any artist is like that. I have like met very few artists who wouldn't be like gifted in like many areas. So once you're an artist and you have an artistic brain, like you are gifted in many areas. So I like cover a lot of stuff, but I feel like every artist does, really.
I agree. Yes, I love that you said that. And I feel like even if you weren't like that before, once you start getting into one art aspect, if you start developing the others, it's really cool. I had no idea like I was able to draw. And then when I started immersing myself more into acting and studying, I started drawing out of nowhere. And I was like, wait, I'm actually good at this.
It is very true. And what's also true is like once you're around other artists, it really feeds it in you, because when like I constantly am getting feedback from other people and I'm seeing what they're doing, and like that feeds more and more. It's just like a snowball. Like it just art feeds art, and artists need to be around other artists to be inspired. So once I came to LA, and there's a lot of people that are very artistic, whether it's like musicians or actors and other artists. It just really snowballs, and you cannot really escape it. So
Yeah, absolutely. And also because like being an artist, it's a lifestyle, right? Like there's other jobs that is more like you go to the office and when you're there, you do that, and outside you're not that. But I feel like when you're an actor, right, like that's who you are. That's your identity, an artist. And then you start seeing life in such a sensitive way. Like everything is emotional and you feel everything so much. So you got to express it in the different ways that you have. And it's really cool.
I really feel like I once I started to do this, it started to really feed it in me, and I started to be more sensitive and like paying attention to my emotions and paying attention to like the world around me and the stories and nature and stuff like that. And it gets so much more colorful. I am just like, if there's one thing that I'm really proud of, is that I grew as an artist while once I came here. So, and I think that that's a journey for many people who start, with one type of art and then just, pick up other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that because you just said when you came here, we both have traveled very far on our own at a
Yes.
young age. And I do think that that has influenced, I mean, of course, the way we are and our art. Um,
Well,
so,
you tell me about it. You tell me about how you started, because this interview is supposed to be me interviewing you.
yes, I forget. I'm always the host of this show, so I'm here asking all the questions. Um, yeah, I do think that living where I was from changed me my whole life. And it's not just leaving a culture, because it is, right? Like you grow up in that culture, there's traditions, there's those things that seem normal to you. And then you get out of there and you realize like what is normal. And you start questioning everything, right? Like everything you've done, the way you behave around other people, like even humor, right? When I came here to America, I was like, I don't understand these jokes. I don't know what they're talking about.
It is different. It is very different.
It's so different. So you have to change yourself as a person too. And I think that coming at such a young age was key there. Because I feel like you can come when you're like 20 something. If I came now at this age, it would be very different. But coming at 17, when you're still literally a teenager,
Yeah.
right? You're still developing yourself and finding who you are and finding, yeah, like what are you going to do with your life? So finding myself here alone when I had been an only child. So I was always very like close to my family. I was a very lonely child too. I wasn't like the kind of person who was very social. So finding myself here on my own, I was like, oh shit, like I'm really here on my own. So I have to do something.
Yeah.
So definitely it shaped me and the way I saw things. And I know I would be such a completely different person if I had stayed in Spain. And I totally understand that there's people that are born in New York and LA and they just don't have to travel like that.
Yeah.
But even if you're born in those cities, like as an artist, I encourage you to travel,
Please.
like to Europe, anywhere, to explore the world and on your own.
Yeah.
It's so different to do it on your own than to do it with friends. Like even with the language, right? Like because I came here and I didn't have my friends or my family, I got to immerse myself in English. And I know I wouldn't have learned English the way I did if it wasn't for that. Right? Like I didn't have anybody to speak Spanish with for months. So at some point you have to learn the language and you have to learn how to pronounce things right.
Yeah.
And yeah, like people always ask me like how did you learn English? It's like, oh well, I just learned by force. Like I had to. There
Yeah.
was no other way. So, did you have that experience like that?
I started my like with English. I started pretty early, so I was already pretty good when I came here. But I have to say that there is a certain aspect of like coming to a different country, on your own. It's just that's something that if I was born here or if I grew up here, it just you have so much strength in you if you do this, and so much, like, I'm so grateful for it, because I feel like I can do anything if I
Yes.
survive this. If I was able to, start in a different country, and like completely on my own, and with no approval of anyone. My parents did not talk to me for 3 months when I moved.
Wow. Wait, was it because they were upset?
Well, they did not want me to do modeling in the first place. They were not very happy about it, and like it was a tumultuous, like, crazy time when I was coming here. But in general, like, if I grew up here, I just wouldn't have the toughness, and also the appreciation for the culture here. Like, I feel like the immigrants are so grateful to be able to be here. It's something that is not very much talked about. But whoever came here from like a different country is busted their ass to be here, and is incredibly grateful for everything. That if I grew up here, I just wouldn't have the same experience, and I wouldn't also appreciate everything so much, because I remember when I came here, everything was so, like, new to me, and everything was so exciting. I remember I
Yes.
was obsessed with Starbucks, for example, because we don't have Starbucks in the Czech Republic. We have one Starbucks in Prague that is extremely expensive. So like one drink would be like an equivalent of like $100.
Wow.
So we couldn't like afford that. So for me, Starbucks, and I came here and I could have like Starbucks every day, and it was like normal, and I was like, oh my god, Starbucks. And so I just remember being like wide-eyed, and like everything was so amazing, and then New York was just so incredible. And I always, like, I'm like, I don't want to forget this. I want to always be this wide-eyed about everything, and just be so excited, because if I grew up here, I would never have that appreciation.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that you said that because I had such a similar experience. I remember I had been in New York before I moved here to visit, and then when I did auditions for schools. But then when I moved here, I remember the plane landed and the taxi like took me to the apartment where I was staying in, and we just went through all New York, and I saw the lights, and I just stared at all of that, and I had the realization like this is my home now. In that moment, I promised myself that I would never take it for granted. Like that was my promise, because I knew like people who had come here and then they like start taking things for granted. I'm like, that's not going to happen. Like remember this moment. And it always has been with me. All those times that I had to maybe rehearse for 12 hours, or we had to wake up at 3 a.m. to be at 5 a.m. on set. And I've caught myself being like, oh, I don't want to do this. And then I'm like, no, no, like you promise yourself you would never take it for granted. And I think that's one of the things that has gotten me this far. Like that
Yeah.
gratefulness, constant gratefulness. And I don't want to shit on like people in my school and people I've worked with, but the truth is that I have worked harder than all of them. And I do think that that's one of the reasons, because it's not the same coming from, a city 1 hour away when your parents are here. And if something happens, your parents can come get you and be there with you, right? And you're still in your culture and in your language, than traveling across the world
Yeah.
by yourself as a teenager and like having your own life and having to figure things out on your own. So definitely it changes you.
Yeah. And yeah, I really, I don't know. It was the being so wide-eyed and so excited about everything that's just going to stay with me for like the rest of my life. And like every day was special, and every day was just like, and every little thing was like going on subway. It was just like a huge thing. And I always want to stay like that. And I would have never had the experience if I was from a different country. So I'm really grateful for that. And of course, it hasn't been easy to, but yeah, this has been a special moment for sure.
Oh my God, it's not easy. It's not easy. And I do want to talk about that too, because one of the questions I also get the most is like my parents don't want me to come to the US, or like I'm like young, I don't know what to do, or like I live in a place where there's no acting. listen, you can shape your life. You can go wherever you want in the world. I feel like a lot of us feel like, I'm born here and it's going to be so hard to go somewhere else. Nobody said it's going to be easy, but you can do it and you should absolutely do it. Like the moment you realize, like you can go from one place to another. Like I was in New York and that stopped working for me for a while, so I moved to LA. That was hard too, right? Like right across America, but you do it. And right before moving to New York from Spain, I remember those like 2 weeks before. That's like the sickest I've ever been. I was literally like throwing up every single day. I was so dizzy. I was feeling terrible. I was so scared. I was terrified. And at that moment I could have stopped and been like, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. But I did it.
Yeah.
And you have to push yourself and do those things that are scary, because otherwise you're not gonna make it far.
Yeah. Which depends, everyone is different. But there's a lot of people that are just comfortable like staying where they are and like doing whatever. But yeah, I mean, I I have this like story when I was like really little. I think it's like I was like 13 or something, and I was like following, reading all the big magazines and like following what all the actresses were doing and stuff like that. And I was like, damn, I had this realization, damn, maybe I'll never make it to Hollywood. It's not very likely. I'm from a tiny town in an Eastern European country, like in the middle of nowhere, like literally, like, how is that gonna happen for me? And then in a few years, I went to Elton John's Oscar party and hung out with the people that I read about. And that's just like anything can happen. Like no matter like how crazy it sounds, it can happen. And not that this is like some crazy achievement. It's not. I'm just showing
But
that
it is.
it is, like anything can happen, no matter how crazy it sounds. So
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. It's a big achievement, Monica. Like, if you had told that to the girl at 13 that was thinking she wanted to be in Hollywood, she wouldn't have believed it. Like, that's how I feel with my life. I'm like, okay, I haven't like won an Oscar. I'm not where I want to be, but damn it, like I'm living the dream. Like that little girl that wanted to be an actress would die if she knew that I'm living in LA, like being an actor full time, like doing what I love. That's it. Like
exactly.
that's the journey, right? It's amazing. It's unbelievable.
So
So
I think that this is more important for me than like any achievements per se. Is that you can have a dream and you can achieve it. And you can even though it sounds absolutely impossible, and it really did at that time, and like everyone would laugh at me if I would tell them that, which I didn't tell anyone because I thought it was crazy. But that's the thing. Like if you think it's crazy, it can totally happen.
absolutely. But here's the other thing, it also takes a long time. I also feel like lots of us think about these things and we want it to happen like this. But the way that you're seeing me and you sitting right here, right now, that's taken us years, right? Like I've been here this summer, it's my 7th year in the US.
Yeah.
And it has not been easy. Like when I got here, it wasn't like it is now. And 3 years ago, when I moved to LA, it wasn't like it is now. Only now I'm starting, like this year has been a big year for me. And I'm starting to feel better and happy with what I'm doing. Not that I haven't been happy before, but I'm just saying the journey is tough.
Yeah.
It's not like suddenly your dream will come true and you're going to be in Hollywood and a superstar.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And we both went through like various stimulus times, from like health issues to, the whole pandemic thing and stuff like that. So I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying that it can happen, which is crazy and mind blowing to me. Like I would never believe that I would be sitting in New York talking to you right now. Like
Absolutely.
So tell me more about your podcast and everything that's going on in your professional life right now.
Yeah, like, okay, it's crazy. I mean, the podcast is the 50th episode, and I have kind of talked about it and how it started. This podcast started in the pandemic, and that's mostly as far as I've gone to. But like what most people don't know is that this podcast started at a very, very dark time in my life. And it was almost like I'm like a cry for help. Like I'm a more positive person than for saying that, but it kind of was. It was a very dark time in my life. And not because of the pandemic. The pandemic just added to that. But I have been an actor since I was 8 years old. I started acting then. So I've been an actor my whole life. And in Spain, I mean, in theater, I have been acting since that time. Like there was not a single year where I did not act. And so when I moved to Los Angeles, the first year I was here, I did a lot of work and I was very grateful because I know a lot of people tell you, when you're starting out, you won't get a lot of things. So it was amazing. And then for several personal reasons that I actually cannot even talk about legally, I just was not able to work as an actor and I had to stop acting for a while. And that was the worst because as we said, that defines you. Like I had been doing that since I was 8, so that was my definition of myself. And I know that's not good, and that's what I've been working on this past year, like finding myself outside of being an actress. But until then, for me, it was like I am an actor, so if I'm not acting, who the hell am I? So it was very dark. It got very depressing, and then it came with more like health issues that I think both you and I are very like holistic and into all that. And like if your mental health is not okay, your physical health will be affected. So I think it just got into like a ball of all that, and then like my personal and emotional health got affected too. I got out of a 5-year relationship, and you were there for that. And that was 2 years ago now, but that was also a very dark time in my life, which added to that. So it's a lot, right? And then the pandemic started. And that was like the moment my eyes opened. Because until now, my life had been shitty, like personally, for like a year. And then suddenly the pandemic kind of like equalized with everybody. And I know this sounds terrible, but it was a shitty time for everybody.
I had the same thing. I'm going to talk about it later, but I had the same thing.
Right? So then it felt like, okay, wait, now we're all in the same situation. I need to like step up here. I need to be like, I cannot let myself drown in this and not do anything with my life. Because as we said, we both are very spiritual and into mindset. And I just had that realization. I was like, what am I doing? Like I always tell everybody, like, if you don't have the means, I create it. And that's what I've been doing my whole life. Like things didn't work in Spain. I moved to New York. Things didn't work in New York. I moved to LA. Like, why am I stuck now? So I was like, maybe I'm just like so stuck in things can only be done one way that's why it's not working. And I actually had a conversation with Chandresh. You know who Chandresh is, right? He's a really good friend of mine. He's a spiritual teacher. And that's what he told me. He was like, once you let go of the idea that there is only one way, so many other ways will open for you.
So true.
And when he told me that, I was like, wait, no, like, I don't think there's only one way. But then, like, I kind of meditated on it. And I was like, yes, like, I'm so stuck in it's going to be this way or no way that I didn't see all the other possibilities.
Exactly.
So then the moment came where I, like, reevaluated myself. And I was like, okay, why are you doing this? Why are you acting? And I had really never asked myself that question. And until then, and I kind of have talked about it in the podcast, my reasons were kind of selfish. It was like, in acting, I felt free. I felt amazing. But then I found that also another big part of why I wanted to be an actor is like the impact it had on me and it can have on people and community and the people you meet in acting and the way that acting literally changes lives, right? And I found myself stuck in all that. And like, I want to share all this knowledge I have. I want to act, but I cannot do that. So what can I do? So that was the moment where I started thinking of all the possibilities. I had always wanted to write a book, which is still something on my list. So I thought about writing a book. I thought about all these different things. And honestly, the one that I wanted to do the least was start a podcast. And the reason for that is because I have always been very self-conscious of my accent. like in school and
Right.
like in real life, like people make fun of you, and it's ridiculous. And I know there's a lot of accents in the US, but I don't know if you experience it, but going to places and people making fun of you for your accent, or being like, I can't understand you, when they obviously can understand you, or
Yeah,
like not being cast because you have an accent. So
for
it
sure.
really makes me like, yeah. So I was very afraid to even speak for a long time, right? Even at parties, because I'm like, oh no, they're going to find out I have an accent. So that's why I was like, no, like I cannot do a podcast because it's just speaking. And I was like, wait, no, that's exactly why I should do a podcast. I need to challenge myself and grow out of this fear. So that's why the podcast started. And it was more about, it also started as a way for myself more than for others, to be honest, because I was in that dark place and I wanted to challenge myself. So that's the beginning. And then as it continued, I found so much joy sharing the things I knew with others. And when I started seeing how much impact it had, and I started growing like the community, which started really small, but it was so cool to see like actors that were international and were like, hey, like I have a similar story than you, like I'm living in Europe, I want to be an actor, and your tips really help. And I was like, wow, like this is really helping people, even if it's literally like 10 people at the beginning. Like literally it was 10, 20 people a year ago, and that was still like so inspiring to me. And that's where I found like the spark to keep going. That's where I was like, this is it. This is what I'm meant to be doing right now. And it's not that I'm like giving up acting. It's nothing like that. But I knew that moment had come for a reason, and that so many things had been preparing me for that moment. All the fears of like talking in public, of me being an introvert, and all those things, and learning and reading so many books, and all that knowledge. It just all made sense.
That's amazing. I love
So
that.
yeah, so that was the experience, and that's what I did. I mean, for a while, the Actor's Vow was only a podcast, but it started only as that. But it's always been something more. Like I've always had this idea of having a whole platform for actors. I just didn't know how I would do it. And I actually have been talking about it for a very long time with my friends, how I wanted to create like this online school for
Yeah.
actors. And I know there's a lot of online classes for actors. You know, there's so many online schools, especially now with the pandemic that came up. But all of them are just like classes. Nothing is like a full, complete acting school, like if you went to college. And what I found ridiculous about that is that to go to college and get all that knowledge, you have to pay thousands of dollars, and
Oh,
so many people don't have that money.
yeah.
And to be honest, a lot of times the people that have that money, they're not the most talented or the ones that work hardest, and the ones that would work hard and are talented don't have the money to go. And that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I want to create, and that's my goal for this next years, like this big school where you can learn all the things that you will learn in an acting school, not just acting, but history, movement, accents, all those things online at a price that, people can afford all over the world. And same if you're, in the Czech Republic or Spain, and you for some reason cannot fly to the US yet, you can still get that kind of knowledge. Because we didn't have that when we were in Europe, right?
I
Like,
would have loved it when, if something like that existed when, I was still back in the Czech Republic. I would have loved it, and I would be like obsessed with it, and I would totally want to take it, if it was affordable, because obviously, the people, especially like from, I don't know, like Eastern European countries and many, many other countries like that, just don't have the means to like afford anything that's like crazy expensive here, and they could definitely not afford like an American university, like never. So I think this is a wonderful idea, seriously.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think anywhere in the world, like Americans university is so hard. And I'm like very grateful I was able to afford it with like three scholarships and my parents, but we really struggled to pay my school. Like, and I really don't think that anybody should have to get that knowledge. Like if you're talented and you're willing to work hard, there's no reason why you should go in
Yeah.
so much depth or go through so many struggles. Like I literally had three part-time jobs, slept like 3 hours every night, like with all the jobs to pay for all that. And that's just ridiculous.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So So yeah, that's where it's heading, the actors vow to the future. Yeah, and it's kind of starting now with the coaching program. That's where I'm trying to take all this with the coaching program. So I'm very happy with it.
That sounds amazing. And, I've been watching the journey, and when you started, and, I've been cheering on you the whole time. And it was really heartwarming to see, the reviews that were coming from people, and like everyone, loved it, and they were so grateful. And everyone kept saying, like, oh, it's like, it's such a like beautiful environment to work in, and everyone is like super nice, and you can really like relax. And I have to say that that was one thing that really like struck me, because I am an introvert and a very shy person. And and a lot of actors that are introverts and shy people are actually amazing actors.
Yeah.
It is very common. But I remember, having the worst time, when I had to start acting in front of my coach, because I have my coach were like one on one. And
Mhm.
I remember just not like knowing what to like do with my hands, and like just being so awkward and just so stiff. And he was so like he never ever like yelled at me, or and I know that if he did that, I would just start crying, and just it would be over for me. So like
Mhm.
it just he was so like just so gentle with me, and so like it just and let me like slowly open up. And I think for people that are like this, it's really important to have a safe environment, a safe space, because especially because you're working with emotions. It is very important to like. I mean, there's schools that do the exact opposite, where you have a coach that's going to be yelling at you the whole time, and everyone loves it and thinks that this is amazing. It just doesn't work for me. If you yell at me, I'm going to cry, and I'm going to shut down, and you're not going to get anything out of me. So it just depends. But what I saw when I saw your reviews on the coaching program, I saw a lot of kids that were clearly, introverted and shy, and starting out and not being sure about. And they all talked about how it was super safe space, and how it helped them, open up, and like how it was really, really encouraging for them. And I think that's really important, because I don't think that many people do that. And I also think that you have the ability, because you're so nice and nurturing as a person, that you like bring it out in people, and make a very good teacher. So I just think that this was a very good idea on your part, which never like came to my mind, but I think that actually like this is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that was my priority when I started the coaching program, which, by the way, is scary. I know my students are going to be listening to this and they don't know any of this part, but like, it was so scary for me to start, a TikTok, for example. And that all kind of came, I mean, going back a little bit, it kind of came because I was very sick in October. You know the story. I haven't like really shared the details, but I was very sick, and I could have died. It was very scary. And that was a very life-changing moment for me. And I spent a lot of months that I would say are the darkest of my life. They were just scary. I was very lost. I felt very alone. And I just had the realization I didn't want to keep living in fear, in any fear. And at that point, I already had the podcast and I had gotten over some fears, but I was like, no, like you could be doing so much more if you got over this fear. Like I had been wanting to do videos, right? And my fear got to a point where I just could not do videos. Like literally speak in front of a camera and do a 5-minute video was the most terrifying thing ever. And I
Okay.
know it sounds
Yeah.
ridiculous, but like I'm just such an introvert. That was so scary. So as soon as that happened and I recovered from the illness, I started putting videos out there. And now it comes so easy to me, but it was such a big step and it was so terrifying. And then going from there to like my TikTok growing and creating all that community and then starting the coaching program, it was also terrifying.
Yeah.
because I had never done anything like that. I mean, I have been an actress for many years. I have directed actors before. I have coached some actors, but like in a personal level. But I have never done anything like this in like a worldwide scale. So there were so many thoughts in me, right? Like all these doubts that we're talking about, all these fears, but honestly it like all made sense as soon as it started, as soon as I met the students, as soon as like we started working. And as I was saying, that was my priority. And the reason why I think it is such a safe space for so many people is because I have felt the way that you said. Like I am that introvert, I'm that shy person that in acting class didn't feel safe at some points and was in the back of the class terrified to act.
Yeah.
It's like the coach would look at you and you were just like, you scared of judgment. People judge you. So that was the last thing I wanted. And I know a lot of my students are young and I am just so inspired by them. I have students from the age of 12 years old and they're
Wow.
so brave. Like when I was 12, I would have never been able to do that.
That's
And
crazy.
I'm just amazed. Like they will act in class and pour their hearts out and they have so much passion and they work so hard. And I am inspired by them constantly. Like I don't think they realize how much they inspire me
Yeah.
daily. Um, so it's beautiful, and I love doing this right now and doing this and the podcast, the coaching. And now, thankfully, I'm gonna start acting again very, very soon. So I'm very excited for that. Doing all those things. But yeah, that's my
Amazing.
experience.
Do you want to tell us more about the project that's coming out for you, or that's a secret right now?
Which project?
I mean, the acting project.
Okay, yeah. So I am gonna start auditioning officially very soon. I actually did a few auditions now during the pandemic,
Mhm.
but I don't have an official project. I'm going to start like audition.
Oh,
As
yeah,
I said,
yeah, okay,
I
okay.
wasn't able to audition
Yeah,
or do things, and then I was sick, and I honestly like my mental health was not even in the place, even if I wanted to audition.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm just very excited that like
Yeah.
things are starting to work in that way.
Yeah, but I again want to say that, it's been really inspiring for me to like watch you grow because, when the podcast started, I was like, I knew for you it was a project, to get, out of your headspace and like do something different, in the middle of the pandemic. So I was like, we'll see how this is going to go. And it's going great and it's growing. And I love that it's like it's the community, you're meeting people and you're connecting with, like-minded people and, building it up. And it's just it's very inspiring to see. And it's also like, just start, just like do it, don't be afraid. Like, is this podcast going to do well? Is the coaching going to do well? Is someone going to apply? Like, you always have these doubts and like, is it like nobody's going to care or whatever? And but the thing is, just start. And it like works for everyone, whether you're starting your TikTok account or whether you're starting, I don't know, anything you're doing, just like go and do it because it will always find its audience. You will always have fans. You will always have someone who will support it, who will be excited, who will be your person, So the really important thing is to just go and do it. And I'm speaking from like a perspective of someone who's scared to do absolutely everything.
Yeah. But
Very
we get things
hard.
done. We get so much done, and here's the difference. Like we all have this imposter syndrome. As you said, like
Yeah,
every time I start anything, hey, every time even I start a class, I do classes Monday and Wednesdays. Before the class, I always have these thoughts like, oh my god, what if it's like not going to be good enough? Or, like
yeah,
all these thoughts, and that just like I call it like negative Nancy. That's like negative Nancy speaking. It's not me speaking. It's like these thoughts that we all have. There's a difference though. You can like let those consume you, or like just ignore them and just still go for it.
yeah, exactly. And like that's the thing, because the difference between the people that are actually doing something and those that are not is exactly this, because everyone started somewhere, and everyone took their first role and everyone was on the set for the first time, and everything is the first, but some people just go and do it and others don't. And that's something I wanted to talk about too, because I come from a culture that Eastern European culture, there's one a trait of Eastern European culture which is very negative. Like,
Mm,
nothing is possible. You cannot do this. It's not gonna work. Don't even try. Just sit on your ass. Don't do anything. Drink beer or whatever, and just like don't even try because there's no way that's gonna work.
uh-huh.
And I had to break through that mindset because I grew up with this mindset, and and even my parents like tend to slip into this mindset pretty often. And then I came here, and all of a sudden it was like, it was possible, and there were people who were doing it. So I just think that whatever you want to do, just go and do it, you know, and just start and see where it goes, and if you fall on your nose, then just get up and like do it again.
Yeah. No, I love that you brought up the thing about the Czech Republic culture. And I do think it's not as prevalent here in the US, but still, I still get a lot of people telling me that their parents say things like that. In Spain, I think it's very much the same. I think it's more like a culture of fear. Like people are
Yeah,
just so scared, like what will happen? Like they just want stability. Like, what if you do this and it doesn't work? What are you gonna do? Listen, I every this is not to brag. This is like to show that this is possible. Every single thing I've set my mind to, I have achieved. And if I have failed along the way, it's brought me to something even better. Always. Like there's not a single thing that hasn't. And it's still happening constantly.
yeah,
So if you keep that mindset, like that you can do it, like forget about what others say. Most
exactly.
people are not doing things because they just are too scared of doing it. And it's sad.
Yeah.
Like you see it. I mean, from where I'm from, I'm the only person that got out. Everybody else is still there.
I am the only, I swear I must be the only person who has ever left our town, like in history. So it's just, I don't know. It's crazy to think of it that way, but it really is like that.
It is. Yeah.
So it's like you do or you don't, you know. And I mean, it's not gonna. And just to put this in perspective, what people don't see behind this is that we both have been through crazy health issues, for example, through all kinds of betrayals and heartbreaks and failures, and it just like how am I still here?
And you're alone. That's like the worst part. Like what we're saying, like our families are so far. Anything happens, they're not there.
Exactly, but like it's not like that it was like an amazing ride. There was, like it's just we've been through a lot of shit even before the pandemic started, and with it obviously got even worse. But it just you still like get up, and you still you just choose to do it every day and don't give up, I guess. So
Absolutely. Now that you're saying that, can we talk about the phrase when people tell us that we're so lucky?
that is something that is like every time we post about it like on Instagram, it like raises such a wave of like people are, yeah, but like you really are lucky though.
They get so offended, right? Personally.
Yeah, they are really like they are just, yeah, but it's not that easy because this and that, and I have a 12-year-old son, and I am this, and you just, I mean, like you don't know what I've been through. So like it's just like it doesn't mean that I've had it easy. It just like some people just go and do it and others don't, and I certainly don't consider myself lucky, because it just I have constantly have something falling on my head. Like there's things like going wrong like all the time. So how am I lucky? I'm very grateful,
Yes, absolutely.
but I don't consider myself lucky, because I had to like bust my ass for like everything that I've ever done. So
Absolutely. I don't think there's like such a thing as luck. And we're talking about like so many times, right? Like people that you know from the past or on Instagram or people that don't even know you at parties, right? They'll be like, "Oh my God, like that's so cool. Your life's so cool. You're so lucky." And it's really like we've worked so hard to get here. And then they'll come with the excuses, like what you're saying, right? Honestly, it's all excuses. And I hate hearing them. Like, whatever's stopping you, it's just an excuse. Because whatever it is, you can totally get through it. And it will be hard, but you can.
exactly. And I remember, I was doing Fashion Week, and I was standing in front of Fashion Week, and I met this photographer, and he was like, who's like new to the industry, and he was like, "Oh, this is so cool! Like you're a model, you get to do all these things," and I'm like, "That's how it looks to you when you
Mm.
look at it from outside." But I had to bust my ass and do crazy stuff to be able to be standing in front of that Fashion Week. And like it just like I had to stand there first when I couldn't get in, and like try to meet people, and like I was like networking like day one when I came here, and I didn't know anyone, and I was standing there in the rain and trying to meet people, and like and then slowly I worked my way up. So it's just like everyone is like, "Oh, you're so lucky that you get to, it's so glamorous and stuff like that." No, it's not. Like, it just, I had to, I just, did not give up, and like got to do it, what I wanted to do, whatever it was, whether it was a small tiny thing or a bigger thing, but it's always, the principle is always the same. So it's not that it's glamorous, it's just that I just didn't give up.
Yeah, no, and like the thing is that people don't see that side. And it's not only us. We're not saying that we're the only hard workers here. There's so many amazing hardworking people out there that are being so successful. And it goes for them too. They're also not lucky. They've worked their way up. But we just don't see that like on social media. You don't see the nights that you spent crying because you felt alone or the nights that you didn't even have a house. Like
Yeah.
I've been at a point in LA, like that's not right now, of course, or like a year ago more when I got here, but I didn't even have a house of my own, right? And I had to like sleep with friends. Like it gets tough. It
Yeah.
really does, but people don't see that side.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, because like your Instagram, you share the best parts of it. So like it gets like it looks really glamorous, and everyone is like, "So you're such a globetrotter because you're like going from place to place and stuff like that." And again, I went to events and I was so sick that I could barely stand when I was,
Mm.
and I had, I came here with $200 when I moved here, and I didn't know what I was going to eat, and it just, and I just, as I said, like I had to stand in front of Fashion Week, and I had to stand this and there, and put up with crazy abusive photographers, and do all kinds of crazy stuff. So it just the way like I see it is I focus on the positive every time, because you can, I was thinking about it recently, it's just like you can choose life or death. And I'm saying it in more like a spiritual way, not like death like physical death, but like you can choose the positive or the negative. And I always choose life, and I always choose to like see the bright side, and I always choose to like see the positive. And which is something, by the way, that can be trained, because
Oh
I'm
yes.
not always like that. I used to be
Same.
very negative. And, again, coming from the Eastern European culture, this very negative, very like, "Oh, no, no, not possible, and don't try, and everything is bad, and everyone's just trying to hurt us," like the victim mentality.
Mhm.
I had to retrain my brain after I came here to think differently, because that was the only way for me to survive here, is to choose the light every time.
100% mindset is something you can learn. I'm the same. Like I had the worst mindset when I came here, right? And like the worst like mental health and all that. And definitely mindset is something I've worked on so much. And actually this time that I said that I wasn't even able to act, that was one of the things I dedicated myself the most to, my mindset and my spiritual side and
Yeah.
growing on that. And I think honestly, it was a gift. I really believe that everything in life happens for a reason, and I see it like that. Even the bad things. Every time that a really bad thing happens, I'm like, oh great, now a great thing will happen. Like this happened for a reason. What amazing thing am I gonna do out of this? Am I gonna do? Not it's gonna happen, because you do it, right? Like you do a great thing out of the bad things. And and I do think that like the universe gave me that time to grow mentally the way that I had, because this is a very tough industry, and if you don't have the right mindset, you are going to have a very very hard time.
True.
um, so I do think that that was time was given to me for me to grow, because I was certainly not ready mindset wise when I came here.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. But I think that, with the pandemic, now that I'm looking back at it, I mean, it's still kind of going, but like, when I'm looking back at the like previous year, I think that this was the case for a lot of people. That it actually brought out, a lot of positive things for them. Like, I'm very sorry to everyone who got hurt, for example, but all I'm saying is, like, I got completely shut down, like shut out of everything that I was doing. It was completely, it just like, it just everything crumbled. It was gone. And then the thing is that you didn't even know whether it was ever gonna come back to
Or when, right? Like they told us to
end,
wait.
you know.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, like, I found myself, just not doing anything that I was doing before. And it was extremely scary. It was very painful. And I really like suffered through every moment, especially, being an empath. Like, I just pick up all the energy. So like all the negativity I was constantly sucking in, and it was just very, very scary, difficult, dark time. But I have to say, like, now looking back at it, there have been, like, I just found so many, like, I grew so much, like, emotionally and spiritually. And, like, as you said, like, before that you were an actress, right? You saw yourself as an actress. So for me, it was like, an actress and a model. And, I was like, that's the thing, before the pandemic, like, my Instagram was kind of taking off, and I was doing like the whole like influencer thing, and it was going pretty well. And I was like, continuing with that. And that got shut down completely too. So like, I could not do any of that anymore. And so I saw myself as, I realized recently that I was trying to fit a mold. I was like, I am a model, so I'm gonna act as like a model. I'm an
Yeah.
actress. I'm gonna do what other people do, and I'm not an easily influenced person. I think I'm pretty like strong personality, but
You
still,
do.
you pick up, things around you, and you're like, oh, so like, if I'm a model, I should be acting this way. I should be doing this and that.
Or posting this, right? Like on social media.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I should, yeah, exactly, and I should be at these places, and doing this. And then you always feel like you're not doing enough, and you're like, oh, but this person is like getting bigger campaigns and getting this and getting that, and that's the egos talking.
Yeah.
It's the like, oh, and this girl booked this role, and what am I doing with my life, and da da da. So there was a lot of pressure on me constantly to, like, do more. And like, I'm not doing enough, and I'm like, and should I be more model like, and should I be more actor like, and should I, and just trying to fit the mold. And what I realized, when it all got shut down, and then all of a sudden it didn't exist, it got obliterated completely. And I didn't know if it was ever going to come back. And I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm finished. And so that was how I felt at that moment. And so then, after some time going through the pain, I started to see myself and find myself, who I really was. And I found out that I was so much more than, a model or an actress, or, someone who's trying to fit a mold and like live in New York and have a certain lifestyle. And I started to do completely different things, and came back to like some of, interests that I had in childhood, and picked up a lot of things that I loved. I started to write a book, and I just started to do a lot of studying of all kinds of different things, and spend a lot of time in nature. I just then picked up all different like artistic endeavors, and spiritual endeavors too. And all of a sudden, it's so much richer and more colorful, and I'm just like feeling so much more like myself. And it was really a blessing in disguise, because I would have never taken the time and stopped and like really looked at who I was, or like what were the things that I really loved, or what were the things that like comprised me as a person. And I don't know, it's so much better now. I am
Yeah.
very proud of the growth, seriously. And
And
I
I'm very proud of you. And I see that. And I mean, I think we've both had that very similar experience to the pandemic, and we've talked about it.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, the way I see it too, for me, like before the pandemic, I think it's the same thing. I cared so much. I mean, I was already in the path of like not caring too much about what others think, but what you said, like even to a certain extent, right? Like what you post, like, oh, maybe I didn't post today. Like you should be posting something every day. Or
yeah,
I don't know, like, or even going to auditions, as an actor and being like, okay, like, are they gonna like this? Like acting for the people in the room.
yeah,
When like during the pandemic, I've discovered such a power of myself, of like, okay, this is me, this is what I do. If you don't like it, this is not the right partnership,
yeah,
right? It's not like me trying for you, like I have to like you too.
yeah,
So that's for me also, like with everything, with like social media, I've discovered too, like I'll post whatever I want whenever I want.
exactly.
Like a really big one was, and I this might be like ridiculous, but this pandemic, like I started posting pictures that like felt good with me. And like before the pandemic, I was very self-conscious of like posting a picture in a bikini, right? Because like when you post that, people like start making comments, like good or bad, no matter what your body type is, no matter what, like you just get the DMs. And I know you experience the same. So I was so like, even my friends, like even my close friends would like judge me if I had posted a picture like that. And then this pandemic, I was like, no, like if I like the picture, I'm just gonna post it. Like I don't care. And it's not for attention. It's not for you to tell me that I look good or bad. Like I don't care. I like the picture and I want to share that. And another day, if I want to share a recipe, I will share a recipe. And it's more like about finding like just do it for yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly. I had, when I last posted my bikini picture, I had about like 100 people unfollow me, and then like people
Yes.
people messaging me and being like, is this really like the content that you want to put out? It's a human body. Like, come on,
Oh
like,
my god, and they say you do it for the followers. I've gotten so many people like, you posting
yeah,
these pictures to get followers. Like I actually lose followers every time I post a picture like that. It's so
exactly.
real.
And then I had another person, which is another thing that like should be discussed. I had like one of the followers being like, uh, your abs are not showing the way they used to.
Oh my god.
Like, why do you think like you have any like you're entitled to comment on like the state of my abs? Like,
That's
do they
crazy.
exist for you to like be commenting on like how my abdominal muscles are looking? Like, that is the most bizarre thing that I've ever like. I was just like looking at it and I'm like, what am I supposed to say to that, so
Yeah, and that's like a negative comment, but even a positive comment. Like I've also gotten things like, "Oh, you've been going to the gym." It's like, what? Like, why? Why are we commenting on this?
it just like, it's like, it's my body. Like, it just like, there's a spirit that lives in this body. There's like a human being. It doesn't exist for you to comment on it, or like, it just, I think that the way people feel entitled to like judge, especially female bodies, is absolutely
Well,
ridiculous.
let's be real. It's not people. It's like usually men.
Yeah, I have this like so one like thing burnt in my head, and there was this older guy, like a comedian or someone, commenting on Ariana Grande and how she's not like all that hot, and like being like, oh, she's like trying so hard and she's like not that hot and stuff like that. I'm like, have you seen yourself? You look like a potato and you're like 18 years old. Like, why do you feel entitled to like, oh my God, how is
It's
this
ridiculous.
a thing?
Yeah. No, and like that's something also that I've learned during this pandemic. Like we're in an industry where like you're totally judged. I mean, and you with modeling even more, with your physique, right? And it's so hard. And for me, it's been such a journey for me to like deal with that. And to be honest, I'm still dealing with that and like how to navigate it the right way. I feel like now I'm getting to a place where it's like I don't care what you think, and I loving my body. But I've had a very tough journey of loving my body because of that. Because you get judged. Like I was like a year and a half ago, I was like for like 2 months talking to this person. I'm not gonna name that is doing many movies that they wanted me for the one of the leads for their new movie that they were planning for. And it was the dream role, like an action film. You know, I love doing action because I love all the martial arts stuff. It was like almost what's it called? Angelina Jolie's role. Um,
Yeah.
what's the movie Angelina Jolie did? Like Tomb Raider?
Yeah, to write it.
Yes, something like that. And I was so excited, wasted my time for 2 months
Oh
to
yeah.
like finally be like, yeah, like you don't have enough abs. Like literally, he was like, if you went more to the gym. And it was so, at that point, was very heartbreaking. Like
Yeah.
at this point, I wouldn't care. At this point, I wouldn't even have wasted 2 months because, like, if you really want me to be in the film, we're not wasting 2 months here
Yeah.
without contracts or anything. But at that point, a year and a half ago, I didn't know, and it just was so heartbreaking. And these things happen constantly.
Yeah, no, I know. Like, it is a strange industry to be in, because like, you are, working with your looks, and there was one of the things that I was like also considering a lot during the pandemic was like, is this even something I want to be doing? Because I detest the pressure of like the constant perfection and like everyone, constantly judging you, and like I see myself as, a spirit or someone who is, emotionally deep and has a lot of thoughts. And, I look a certain way, but that was never very important to me. So like for people to make it all about that and like, as you said, like, judging you for not being this and that and the other thing, it's like that is such a ridiculous concept,
Yes.
and
And
it
it's so hard because we're both, as you said, very emotional and like spiritual people and into mindset. And like that's the first thing you like that you kind of learn, right? Like that the physique doesn't matter, and that's how we live our lives. But then you are working in an industry where the physique does matter. So
yeah,
how do you find that balance?
yeah. And sometimes like, it gets to a point where, the physics is the only thing that matters,
Oh yeah.
and I haven't had that experience like myself personally, but my friend who's a model went to a casting, and they started to look at their teeth as if they were like
Horses.
horses. So they would just like take them, and it's just like uh I don't know. Modeling is a very strange industry to be in. Like uh, it is a lot of pressure, and it can be very, very abusive. Like I've had, photographers like say abusive things to me, and like it is a very tough industry to be in. So I'm glad that I, branched out to, other industries, especially like, as a person who is, as I said, emotional and spiritual and stuff like that. So it's just like working just with your body is not really cutting it for anyone, I think. And every model eventually, finds a different path. But yeah, you know the thing is that if you're an actor, you're gonna be working with your looks. Like it is
Yeah.
you're working with your body. I mean, that's your tool. So
Yeah.
it's and you're always going to be judged. So you can take, the approach of, someone who does it for a few years and then retires because they don't want the pressure, or you can do it as Judy Dench, or
Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep, who and just be an actor and be in it for the acting and not for whoever is saying whatever about your body.
Absolutely. And you don't want to work with those people. Like, as I said, everything happens for a reason. Like, now I'm so grateful. Like, I didn't get that role that I just explained. And of course, they gave it to a model that's not even an actress, but she just looked the part,
Yeah,
which is totally fine. But, you know, it's that's not how it works.
yeah.
Because then you're gonna have the look but not the acting. But whatever, the industry does work like that a lot of times. I mean, how many movies are like that, when they cast people who have not even studied acting or don't know acting? But that's the truth. That's the industry. And instead of like sitting here and complaining about it all day, which you can complain a little bit, but you just have to realize that that's how it is. And learn how to take advantage of that in the way like Meryl Streep, as you said, or Judi Dench, or Helen Mirren, all these people have done, and know why you're doing this, and that the people that truly you want to work with will learn to appreciate who you are as a talent and not just as a physique.
That's the thing that I wanted to say, is that from my experience, who I got to meet, who were pretty big filmmakers, and whether they were directors or producers, or whoever was really doing something in the industry, was never an asshole. Never really. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it depends, but there are a lot of like really nice and really intelligent people
Oh yeah.
in the industry.
But the biggest assholes are the wannabe ones, for sure. Those are the biggest assholes. Yes.
That's what I'm trying to say. I mean, we have the whole, Me Too movement, and that program, so that, of course. But I've met a lot of like really intelligent people. So I personally believe that, the people will appreciate, who I am as a person more than, just the looks. That's just my belief, from what I've seen so far. But we'll see.
The right people will. And here's the thing, as an actor, I feel like a lot of times as actors or models, you feel like you are trying to get others to like you. And I think we kind of talked about it before, but we just don't understand that this is a business partnership and it goes both ways. So many actors are like, I just want to be in a movie, like I don't care. No, like you are your own product, your own company. Have standards. Know what you want and what you don't want. Like you can totally say no, and you should say no, because the things that you do will reflect. Like a bad movie can really stay with you for a very long time if it gets on the wrong hands or the wrong audience. So you really want to be very careful with what you do. Not Don't be like just like I just want to do anything because I'm new.
Yeah, exactly. No, it just most actors, just want to act, so they will just take like anything, and that's never, to me, that's never a good approach, because, as you said, like have standards and like know what you want, because
Yeah.
it just, it can get weird really quickly. So so the scripts that I get sent, like it's just the worst.
Yeah, I think it's hard when it's also like a lot of money. And I know that as actors we struggle, and it's like, oh, like this is such good money, but it doesn't like connect with you. Like you really gotta be strong sometimes to say no, but you really have to learn to say no. Like if it doesn't connect with you, if it doesn't expand your artistic side, if it just doesn't, just say no. It doesn't matter the money.
I remember just after I came to America, someone told me the most important thing that you have to learn is to say no.
Yes.
And I always think of that. And I have said no to so many things. And I have never regretted saying no to any of them. I
Yeah, but I've
always,
regretted saying yes to some of them.
exactly, exactly. And it's like kind of the opposite of like real life, because I've regretted like only the things that I didn't do and not the things that I did. But as for the project, it's the exact opposite. Like I just like I say no to everyone. all the time because you have to like know where you're going and what you're doing and like what your time is worth and what you are worth, you know
Yes.
because I've done, some like crazy stuff. Like, I remember I assisted a photographer who promised to take me to Fashion Week the first time, like just after I came, and it was just like a horrible day when I was like slaving, holding lights somewhere, and like then he just disappeared and didn't do anything for me, of course. And
Of course.
it just so that taught me a lesson, and yeah, it just you have to be aware of like your time and your worth, and that goes for even for the Me Too movement too, because a lot of times a big part of it, I mean, it's very easy to get coerced into something, but it's also a part of it was always that the girls really, really wanted the role and thought that if they pay for it this way, that's gonna get them somewhere. It never does. I remember there's this very famous actress, and I'm friends with her mom, and she has a little shop in LA, and I always go there and we talk, and she's very sweet. And what she told me is, look, the producers talk to each other. The
Mm-hmm.
characters talk to each other. So once you do that once, and sleep with someone, or do anything, you let yourself get coerced into anything, they will all tell each other,
Oh yeah.
and
It's such a small industry.
you're done. So that's the thing. Never, ever, ever do that. It's just because you're degrading yourself as a person, you're degrading yourself as a woman, and you're degrading yourself as an actor. And I would rather not work a single role ever again than have to degrade myself this way. You know, so I will rather find an alternative way and maybe, make my own movie or just find a different way than it's not worth it. It never is, you know.
Absolutely. And that goes for anything. Like even like being nice to people. What you said that people talk to each other. Like I feel like we have this idea that the industry, there's so many people, there's so much going on. But to be honest, it's literally just a small group of people that once you know a few, they all know each other. Like I have
Exactly.
so many friends that like I go to a party and then I start networking. I'm like, wait, do you know that person? Like I know that person too. And it's like we all know each other. Like it's
Exactly.
so weird. So yes, in the industry, as soon as you do something, whatever it is, everybody will know.
Yeah, exactly. It is actually a very small world. Like LA is very small, and
Yes.
everyone knows each other. And I'm always like, oh my god, this person knows this person. Like really, yeah. Once you know a few people, like you know everyone. So the word gets around,
Yeah.
and so yeah, definitely be nice to people for sure.
Hello, everyone. This is the end of this episode. There's going to be a part two because Monica and I had to record a 45-minute episode, like always, and it ended up being a 2-hour conversation. So, next week, you're going to get part two of this. I hope you're enjoying it. In the next episode, we're going to be talking more about acting in depth. We're going to talk about acting methods. We're going to talk about method acting, and many more things and personal life stories. I hope you're enjoying this more vulnerable and raw episode about our personal lives more than just the industry. So this is gonna be all for this week. Thank you for listening. As always, remember to subscribe on iTunes and leave a review. It's so helpful for the podcast. Also follow the Actors Vow on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, on TikTok, and on YouTube. Again, all the audios are there with a video for the interview, so you get to see me and you get to see the guests, so it's a lot of fun. Thank you so much again for being here another week, and I will see you next Wednesday. Bye!